Welcome back, and in this part of our tutorial we are going to look into the task that we had to do in the last class. We are going to define a variable that can hold the health of the player. Obviously health is a number, so it's going to be either int or double or float. So let's make it a int, right? And I'm going to name it health, and maybe the health of the player by initial should be 3, and we can make it public because we want to change it from the editor. If I go back to Unity, you can see the health is 3. Awesome. Okay, so what we are going to do today is we are going to use this variable. So we are going to use the speed variable first. Now remember the two methods we have changed when we started this script. One of them is called start. So let's start with that one. We're going to use that. Yeah, it should look something like this. Don't worry about all this syntax and stuff. Always remember one thing, that everything should go inside these two curly braces. The class has two curly braces, and every time we create a new method or function, we have curly braces. All right. So as you go, as you move forward, you're going to get more familiar with all these things, and things are going to be really simple. So don't worry much about it now. All right. So first thing first, we are going to write our first built-in function, which is we want to see this speed, say, for example. How can we do that? We can use something called print. This statement is basically automatically imported inside Unity, so we can use it. And if we, for example, write down speed here, what should be the output? Gaze, let's play it, and you can see 15. Why is it 15? Because if you click on your player, you can see the speed is 15 here. All right, so even if you use the value 5 here, the value that you assigned into your editor is going to be the value that is the Unity engine going to be using. Okay, so yeah, so start, as you saw, when we press the play button, it prints out the value 15 once, right? So this gives us the understanding that this method, whatever the method is, everything that we write inside here should be executed just once. Okay, now let's try another one. Let's try update. I'm going to make this thing simplified, and if I now do print speed and play it again, as you can see, this value, the 15, is now getting printed over and over again. All right, so this is really this doesn't look that much, but this concept is really important for us. Why? So for example, I want to move my player up and down, right? So movement is a continuous process. So if I try to do it in the start, it's not going to work, obviously, because we want to have a continuous process that keeps running. So that is why we might use update to move our player. So let's try that out. How can we move our player, you may ask? Well, let's get back to Unity again. If I now use this click my player, remember now we have 3 different component: transform, sprite renderer, player. And we have mentioned that transform is basically a combination of position, rotation, and scale. Now what is the definition of movement? How can we define movement? Movement happens when we change positions, right? So if I change the position of my player, if you can do that by holding your mouse just on top of Y, right? And then if you drag it, you can see it's changing the value of Y, and as we change the value of Y, it's basically changing its position. right? So basically we are trying to change the transform and the position in the y. That is what we are trying to do. Transform and position and y, right? So yeah, if that makes sense to you, let's try to do it in code. If I try to do transform dot position dot y equal or equal, yeah, transform dot position dot y plus 1, you'll see there is an error. There is an error here because we cannot just like change the y directly. We need to change the whole position. What does that mean? That means we also need to change the position in x, we also need to change the position in z and y, obviously, but we don't want to change the position in x and z. So that means what we're going to do is keep them 0, but keep them 0 first. Let's see how can we do that. There is 3 value, that means we need a vector 3, and we need 3 values. In x we need 0, in y we can add 1, in z we can again add 0. What did we just do? We just added one vector with another vector, right? So what is a vector? We have to talk about it. There is one section in this tutorial where you learn about maths, game maths. There we talk about vector a little bit. So I really encourage you to go there after you have some idea on C# scripting. But for now, I'm just going to make it simple for you. All right, so let's go back to Unity. In position there is 3 values, right? X, y and z. And remember, variables are basically things that can store data, but for this case we have 3 different data. How can we store 3 different data into one? So that is why you use something called vector. Vector is a sort of data type, just like float, right? Vector is another sort of data type which can store 3 values at a time, x, y and z. So let's create a new vector here just for your convenience. Public vector 3 position, right? If I do this and go back to Unity, just to show you how it looks like, you can see there is 3 values, x, y and z, right? So it looks just like this, x, y and z. So we can actually use the vector 3 to move our player, right? So that is exactly what we are doing now. Well, that makes sense, but what is new? New is a keyword to create a new copy of this vector. All right, so we are going to talk about new keyword when we talk about class and objects, but for now remember that vector is basically something, a variable or a data type that can hold 3 different values, x and y and z. All right, so if we play now, let's see what happens. We can see there's a movement and it's blazing fast. Okay, so we are going to make it smaller than maybe 0.1. And in Unity, when you are using float, you have to put f in the end. So that's why there's an error, because this is it's expecting a floating type, but as you can see the error says double is not assignable to parameter type float. So we need to put a f here so that it understands that this is a floating type variable. Okay, now if we play a little bit better, we can do a little bit slower as well, maybe 0.01. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, so we have moved our player upwards. How about we want to move it downwards? Which value we need to change? So think about it. So this is going to be your task 2. How can we move our player down. Think about it, try to solve it by yourself, and I'll see you in the next lecture.